helpful, and thank you for clicking on today's video. So as you can tell by the title, we are going to be talking about how I declutter. And it's going to be a lot of questions that I ask myself when I'm mulling over, should I get rid of this? Should I not? Could it have a better home? Etc., etc. If you are a long-time subscriber of my channel, you'll know that this was one of the first videos I ever did on my channel about 11 months ago, and this is going to be a redo of that video, A, because I am much better on camera than I used to be, and B, because I have come across even more helpful tips that I will be adding on to the tips of that video, and also C, for those who haven't seen it, we're going to do a redo. I will say a lot of people on TikTok ask me a lot of questions about, oh, how do I declutter this? What's the proper amount of this to have, etc., etc. So this is also for them, and if you are from TikTok, welcome, subscribe if you're not already, and if you're not from TikTok, link for my TikTok is in the description down below. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started into how I declutter. Alright, so with a lot of items in my house, sometimes I just know. I see it and I'm like, I don't use that, I don't want it, it can find a better home, gone. But sometimes it's not that easy, and these are the questions I want you to ask yourself if you're mulling over an item and you're just totally unsure. If you guys want a tips video of things that maybe aren't covered in this list, leave a comment down below and I would be happy to make that video for you. So, number one is, does it have a home inside my home? And if it doesn't, can I make it one? This is really important because I find that especially on flat surfaces like desks, counters, bookshelves, etc., they tend to become dumping grounds of just stuff that gets set down there because it has no other place to live. Not only is having a home for everything in your home really ideal for organization, but it's also ideal because it helps you understand what is of value to you and what isn't. If you have made a designated space in your home for this item to belong, it probably is worth enough to you for you to have done so. So, if it doesn't have a home, it's probably creating clutter. And if you cannot or don't want to make it a home, it's probably not something that you need. So that's question number one. Number two is it useful to you? So I know that there's a lot of different methodologies to decluttering, and one of the most popular ones is Marie Kondo's, does it spark joy? And I have never really gotten on with that methodology because there are a lot of things in my life that I need that don't spark joy whatsoever. My toothbrush doesn't spark joy, my deodorant doesn't spark joy. You know, there's all kinds of things that I have and need in order to live like a full adult life and existence that don't inherently spark joy. So, coupled with the does it spark joy would be, is this item useful? If it has a definite use and you use it, then I would say it's an item that can be kept. If it doesn't, it may be something worth considering whether you want to keep it in your life or not. Number three is, does it have value to me, not just in general? And let me explain what I mean by that. There are plenty of things that have a high price tag on them and are expensive, some of which I have decluttered. One of my biggest regrets, and I actually made an entire video about like big purchases that I regret, I can link that down below, but one of my biggest regrets in purchases was a $400 leather jacket, or maybe it was $500. I feel like it was $500 leather jacket that I ended up decluttering because I never wore it. It had no value to me. So what I want you to do when you're asking yourself this question is I want you to detach something that is valuable, like a leather jacket or expensive jewelry or whatever it may be, and what has value to you, because they're definitely different a lot of the time. If it has value to you, regardless of the price tag, it's something that I think should be kept. If it is just valuable and doesn't have value to you and you're only keeping it because you spent money on it, I have two things to tell you. Number one, it is not saving you any money by sitting in your cupboard or closet or jewelry collection. That money is already gone, and looking at that item every day and it not being used is probably bringing up feelings of guilt. Number two, you can sell expensive items. There's all different types of ways, particularly with clothing, jewelry, and shoes, which tend to be my hang-ups, there are a lot of different ways to make money off these items, whether you're doing a consignment shop or selling it on Facebook Marketplace or selling it on ThreadUp, whatever it may be. With the internet age, there are plenty of different ways to make money off your used goods, and that is far-reaching. I mean, the type of things that I've purchased used, I mean, the most random things: kitchen bowls, kitchen spoons, shoes, camping sleeping bag, whatever it may be. Somebody probably wants it, and somebody will probably buy it used. So if it's expensive and that's why you're mulling over it, try selling it, because sometimes a fat stack of cash can be the motivating factor to help you get rid of something that you never wanted to begin with. All right, this next tip is directly from my TikTok, but it seemed to help a lot of people on TikTok, so I'm relaying it to the YouTubers who don't have TikTok or don't follow me on TikTok. And that is, do you use it? And do you like it? And it's sort of a two-part question, because there's a lot of things that we may be using because we've kept them, but we don't need to be. And let me give you an example. I used to have a lot of pans in my kitchen, and I would use the good two, my favorite two, first, and then when they were dirty, I would default to the crummy pan. So I was technically using it, but it was just because I was too lazy to wash my pans, and then it ended up causing more stress later when I had 4 pans to wash instead of 2. So, do you use it is a very good question to ask yourself, because if you don't, it's a pretty easy goodbye. But also, why are you using it? Do you like it? Because if you don't, it may be worth it to get rid of it and find it a better home. Number 5 is the item worth its maintenance? Now, most good items that we have in our life require a certain amount of maintenance. My car requires maintenance, my shoes I take to the cobbler every month, even the house that you live in requires maintenance, whether it's cleaning or repairing or whatever it may be. Maintenance is not inherently an issue. What I'm saying is the item worth its maintenance to you? And in this instance, you just really have to be honest with yourself. A perfect example for me is silk and cashmere. I used to have a lot of silk clothing and a lot of cashmere clothing in my closet, and then I just sort of got to the point of realization that for me, the hand washing and the special detergents that I needed and the air drying and the this and that and the other, it just wasn't worth it for me for the item that I was holding on to. I like the look of silk and I like the feeling of cashmere, but for me, once I was honest with myself, I realized that it wasn't always worth the maintenance. I still have a couple of silk items and a couple of cashmere items, but they no longer make up the bulk of my wardrobe like they once did. Okay, number 6 is a little bit morbid, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but it is something worth thinking about, especially if you're a little bit older in age. And that is, will I want to pass this on when I've passed on? So this one pretty much speaks for itself, and actually I believe in Sweden they have a term for this called death cleaning. When you're getting older in age, you sort of clean with the purpose and declutter with the purpose of what are you going to pass on to kids and grandkids, and what do they actually want, and whatever it may be. And although I'm young, I do sometimes frame my thinking like this, but I more use it when I'm helping people who are a little bit older and have mini generations of stuff to get rid of, declutter. For example, my mom. My mom has 4 sets of fine china, and me and my sister, we don't want fine china. So I took the Christmas china. My sister didn't want any of the china, and now my mom has 3 sets of china that she doesn't use, she doesn't want, her kids don't want, I doubt her grandkids are gonna want once, they're born. So now I've been telling her, hey, if this is something that you're holding on to and it's obviously taking up a lot of space and it's not something that anybody wants once you've passed on, it may be worth it to unburden yourself of keeping maintenance of it during the rest of your life. Now, my mom is not that old, so she has a lot of years left. Thankfully, I'm very blessed in that regard. But it is worth it to think about, because this takes up a lot of space in her cupboards. It takes up time and money to dust and maintenance and whatever, when in reality she could just sell it, get some money, she doesn't have to be burdened with it anymore, and nobody else has to be burdened with it when she eventually does pass on and nobody wants the stuff. So, morbid, but useful. Number 7 is, am I only keeping this because of its high price tag when I originally purchased it? So sometimes we buy expensive things, and sometimes expensive things don't work out, whether it's, a doggy training toy that ended up not working, or a baby soother that ended up not working. And it's not wrong to purchase things and have them not work out, but it does typically lead to feelings of guilt if you then hold on to these expensive things and you're looking at them and you're just like, oh, I spent so much money and it didn't work out. What am I doing? So if you're holding on to something just because it was expensive, just to repeat myself, keeping it in your house and having it take up real estate in your house is not going to bring that money magically back to your bank account. But do you know what will? Selling it. And it might not bring back the full original value, but it'll certainly do more for you than it just taking up space in your home. So that's another one to consider. Number 8 is, would I purchase this right now if I didn't own it already? I think we as humans have a tendency when we are familiar with an item to favor it over unfamiliar items. And what I mean by this is, if something is something that you own and you're familiar with seeing it and you're familiar with interacting with it, you may have a bias to keeping it more than you would if it was something that was sitting on a store shelf and you hadn't previously owned. So I want you to put yourself in that frame of mind. Pretend you're shopping at your favorite store. For me, it's Target. And if you were to see this item on the shelf at Target for any, whatever it's worth, price, would you purchase it? And if the answer is no, it's probably not something that's serving you, and therefore probably something that could get the kick. All right, that's gonna be it for my list today. Please leave any questions, comments, or ideas for future videos in the description box down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.